Hey everybody, welcome back. Alright, so in this lesson we're going to look at how to create space between elements in the same frequency range. So remember what we said in the first approach to mixing lesson video. You obviously want elements that are in the same frequency range to have preferably a different timbre and be different on the performance level as well. So we did mention that you could also push this even further by using things like sidechain compression or sidechain multiband compression more specifically, which is what we're going to look at in just a sec. In this case, there are really sort of two ways to create extra space between two elements. So let me just play this track so we all know where we are and we're on the same page. So this is a track that's literally just vocal and piano.
Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. I'll feel the fear for you. I'll cry no tears for you. I'll do anything I can.
Okay, so it's a track by Francis, and it's a beautiful track, the original. This is just a remake that a friend of ours wanted to do for her son and the sort of charity that they work with. So very simple track, and on many levels it's a very easy track to mix because of it. It's literally two elements, vocal, piano, pretty simple.
Climb the hills you face. I'll do this in your place.
What we're talking about here is even with elements like this, they are in the same, pretty much the same frequency range. Obviously the piano has a pretty broad frequency range from anything which is sort of low frequencies. Let's just look at the piano group here.
I'll do anything to go through it instead of you. Even if I fall down.
So as you can see, we've just got a very broad range of frequencies. Obviously it goes up higher as well. And then on the vocal,
when you're not around, don't worry about me. Don't worry about me.
so we've got more high frequencies, but we're still, the main bulk of frequencies is around the sort of same area as the piano. So if you listen a bit further on, where the singer starts to get a bit higher in pitch, and so does the piano sort of rise up to meet that. Let's just play a little bit here.
Don't worry about me. 'Cause if I fall, you'll fall. If I rise, we rise together.
So there's not, they are separated in very many ways, but you can help that separation. So as mentioned, there are two different ways that you can do this. One is just with using what I call opposite EQ. So in fact, we can just use the Cubase feature now in 10.5 with the spectral curve analysis. So we're on our piano group. This is our piano group at the moment. And we can just go and find our vocals group here. So we've got both now playing at the same time, or the spectral curve, so both.
Together.
Obviously the vocals is in orange.
When I smile, you'll smile.
So what we're going to do is we're going to stay on the piano group for a sec, and I'm just going to do a sort of filter sweep. Let's just make this a little bit tighter. And what we're looking for really is when the frequencies of the piano start to kind of mask that of the vocal. So it's normally with vocals, it's around about the, well, especially with female vocals, it's around about the sort of 2K kind of mark where we start to get that sort of masking. So that's kind of where we're going to test out, but let's just go through it because we want to be precise.
You'll fall. And if I rise, we rise together. When I smile.
So we are pretty much, I would say, exactly on 2K mark where you can start to just sort of hear that it's not that you can't tell what the singer's singing, but you can hear that it's starting to just get a little bit tight around that area. So just remember this, we're on 2.24, so let's just use our gain control to dip that.
You'll smile. Don't worry about me.
So of course, this is one way to make a gap for the sort of prominent frequencies of the vocal. So the piano is conflicting even less with the vocal. And that's one thing you can do, and then we can just play with the cue a bit.
Don't worry, I rise, we rise together. When I smile.
And in something like a pop mix, I mean, this isn't completely finished, the mix at the moment, and we haven't started really sort of, slamming it through any compressors or anything like that. Not that you want to slam this kind of track, but from a limiting and getting maximum volume levels point of view, we haven't gone through that stage yet. So when you do that, and also when it's played on the radio, if this is going to be a pop mix, for example, then you're going to want as much space as you can get between those two elements. Now, that is one way of doing it. Now, we marked the frequency basically where we get the sort of conflict of frequencies. So let's look at how to do this with multiband sidechaining, which is basically the superior method. So just remember 2.24K, that's basically our frequency range that we want to sort of combat. So let's go to our piano group and go multiband compressor. And let's just find where we are. So we're going between this sort of range here, so just over sort of 2K. This will be the band that we're going to use sidechain compression on. Now these other bands, they can just be muted, so they're not affecting anything. So literally we've just got one compressor, which is going to be compressing between this frequency range here. Now let's activate our sidechain. Select sidechain input, which is, let's just use our vocals group, that's fine. And then all we got to do is set up the compressor so it's dipping whenever the singer sings. So we don't want any attack because we want it to kick in instantly. As soon as the vocal hits, we want it to be turning down this frequency band of the compressor. The release we're probably going to want very quick because we don't want it to give that sort of sucking effect as the level drops back below the level of the threshold. We want that to be very quick, possibly even 10 milliseconds is fine. And of course, don't forget to activate the sidechain input for this band. Simply done.
Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. 'Cause if I fall, you'll fall. And if I rise.
So let's just pick an area that's going to be good to test. Might get a bit annoying listening to this over and over again, but that's what we got to do. So you can hear it just making a bit of room for the vocal. If I make this band much wider, it becomes much more apparent what it's doing. But obviously this isn't what we're doing. We're being very precise with our mixing here. So I'm just making it super extreme here, just so it's completely obvious what it's doing.
We rise together.
Clearly it's dipping the level of the piano massively whenever her vocals play. So let's just narrow that back down to sort of the region that we want. It's about there, that's fine. And of course we don't want as much threshold as that.
We rise together.
So there we go. We just created that extra gap in the frequencies by using sidechain compression. And the good thing about this is that it's incredibly hard to detect that you're actually doing anything, because as soon as the vocal comes in, the vocal kind of replaces the frequencies that you're dipping out of the piano. So it's one of those things that just creates extra space in your mix, but you can't really tell that it's actually doing it, even at fairly extreme levels like we got. So let's just listen a little bit further back and just double check.
I'll feel the fear for you. I'll cry no tears for you. I'll do anything I can to make you comfortable. Even if I fall down when you're not.
So you can't really even notice that. And Whereas with the set EQ, if you have it set all the time, dipping a certain frequency, you're going to notice that all the way through the mix, especially if you dipped it by what this is actually dipping it by, which is like minus 11 dB, so which is quite a big dip. But as it's happening actively in our track, it's very hard to detect that you're actually dipping those frequencies, but it is creating the space for the vocal. It's a really, really awesome approach. And you can use this with anything. Obviously with low end, which we're going to look at in more detail later because it's such an important topic, so we're going to cover that in a separate lesson. But with anything, leads and vocals, piano and vocals, arps and leads, all sorts of stuff, you can use this method to create extra space between them. Okay, so it's a really neat trick because most people won't even be able to detect that it's happening. They'll just notice that you've got a nice spacious mix. Now, once again, I've just got to reiterate that there's no magic bullet. It's just to add a little bit of extra space. It's not going to solve the problem if you've picked two elements which just aren't working well together. It'll help a little bit, but it's not going to make your mix sound big. If you've got too much going on, it's still going to sort of sound like a small mix. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to look at adding warmth and excitement to your mix. Thanks very much for watching, guys and girls. I'll see you in the next one.